In a time of sustained drought, a large storm approaches. This is predicted to be one of the worst storms to strike the Western Cape in decades. Provincial Disaster Management closed schools and issue severe weather and storm warnings. Most of the emergency services prepare for flooding. On the morning of the 7th of June, the people in the surrounds of Knysna and Plettenberg Bay areas woke up to not a flood of water, but a flood of fire. On the southern coast of South Africa lies the town of Knysna. This is a popular holiday destination because of its natural beauty. It is surrounded by forests and hills that stretch away from the coastline and slowly build into the Swartberg mountain range. On the morning of the 7th of June, 2 fires were to erupt that would eventually combine, cutting off the town of Knysna and resulting in the largest deployment of firefighters in South African history. The first call came around 2:30 in the morning, when a forester working for MTO called fire services to assist with the fire at Damsebos in the Kruisfontein plantation to the east of Knysna. Around 4 in the morning, the fire services were called to another wildfire near Elandskraal. A crew was dispatched from the Sedgefield fire station, which is a town close to Knysna. Little were they to know how the day would unfold, as unknown to them, a third fire had erupted in the Elandskraal area. At 6:15 in the morning, a call was received about this third fire. A vehicle was sent through from Karatara to investigate. They soon reported back that the fire was spreading rapidly due to the winds. The crew at the Elandskraal Fire were then redeployed to the Elandskraal Fire. When they arrived, they were met with hell on earth. The fire had jumped the Barrington Road and was spreading rapidly past Serenity, a local rehabilitation centre. Suffering difficulties with communication, the handful of firefighters attempted to do what they could. By this time, there was little that could be done.
Please, can somebody come and help? We are at number 1 Templeman Road, Knysna Heights. My husband and my father-in-law, which is 71 years old, is still stuck in the house. Please, somebody help us. Please.
I can't get hold of emergency services. Please, somebody help me. Everyone at Eastford Country Estate at the top of Alberduct, they're stuck. They're surrounded by flames and they're stuck in there. They need ambulances and they need fire engines. Please, can someone help immediately, please?
On that morning of the 7th of June, when we arrived from another fire at Elandskraal, we came the early hours of the morning to Elandskraal. The wind was very, very strong. It was gale force winds. We were driving Echo 9, which is a 6,000 litre water tanker. When we arrived at the part of Elandskraal, we couldn't go further because we were engulfed with flames just right ahead of us. We stopped nearby a house and a garage, and we saw trees, probably 10-20 meters high, that was going like, it looks like real hell.
Well, obviously this is the kind of experience that I hope is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You would not really think that this can happen twice. So it was, most of the time, so far out of my field of expertise and so far out of my experience that, we were busking and just making it up as we went along. We had a pretty overwhelming response from the community. I think they were slow to react initially. They didn't quite realize just how serious the fire was. It became really serious when we realized for the first time that the fire had crossed Renendal Road at the Leeuwenbush farm stall and effectively isolated us from Knysna. And that the speed at which it was moving and the reports we were getting was that this was just something completely overwhelming. We were fortunate because we missed that. That was what I call the head of the fire, the hot ball of fire that moved very, very rapidly from Elandskraal down across Blackwaters and into Knysna. We missed that, but later in the day, the flank of the fire, all the areas that have been set alight by this ball of fire moving, started to move towards us.
Yeah, I think the Knysna incident was part of the bigger storm incident. So the disaster center activated the day before the storm already. So the storm was actually, we got a notice of it at the 5th. The 6th we knew it was gonna, like, it was first an advisory, then it was up to a warning, and then the disaster center activated. And on the morning of the 7th, at just after 4, I was phoned to inform me that the plantations to the east of Knysna is alight. Then the fire to the west of Knysna wasn't reported to us yet, but the plantations was alight, and then immediately that resulted in the N2 being closed. Then immediately we knew we were going to be in for a busy day. So we activated the center, we got all the role players in, and we started unfolding from that.
Initially, the first call out that we received, the 4 o'clock call out to Kruisfontein was, okay, it's a run-of-the-mill fire, the wind's blowing a bit, so it's going to be a long day, it's going to be hectic, and responded out there. But when I got called by my crew from Sedgefield and said, listen, it's burning this side, and they say that it's running wild. I communicated to the chief fire officer, Mr. Manuel, and I headed out that way. And when I got there, it was something I've never seen in my life before. I mean, basically on the 1st of December this year, I'll have 30 years service, and it's something I've never seen in my life. You're just greeted by this immense wall of 20, 30 meter high flames coming right at you, and there's nothing you can do.
This fire is coming at a hell of a speed at us. It's going all over, electrical wires melted and snapped, and telephone wires melted and snapped, and then eventually the poles, the tar poles, it was also going.
You know, it was a morning where you think you only get phoned when there's really trouble and you need to come and assist. So that morning, first thing is to, okay, this is it. Never realized that you won't go home till the Friday morning because it started on the Wednesday. But when you got there, or when we came there, we see this thing as big. So we settled to have a joint ops and incident center. But when myself and the fire chief from Knysna were standing, and we were looking at it, and we have heard that there's another fire, and the wind and the smoke is hectic, we realized this thing is bigger than we think.
You realized how you as a firefighter, not even as a chief officer, as a firefighter, that you are totally helpless. You're looking at yourself and say, and me personally, I was struck probably about 9 times on that 7th, and trying to get people out and realizing you can't get to those people, you need to get out. But there's something saying to you, you're the fire department, and who else is going to help these people? But realizing, you cannot do this. The biggest realization to me was there's nobody else I can hand this over to.
Early that morning I was on my way back from Cape Town because I knew that something might happen. And then early that morning we heard that the fire started at several places. I first directly from Cape Town went to Kruisfontein to assess what was going on there, and there I met up with the Knysna fire chief and the local foresters, and I informed them that fire is running at a very fast pace from the Elandskraal region. I just passed it, and then we went back to the White Bridge, where we already saw the flames coming over the hills at the back, and we made a quick assessment of the situation there by the White Bridge. Also looking at getting in some additional resources, and made a call that we need to evacuate areas.
The 7th of June 2017, the Knysna fire originated somewhere in the area of Elandskraal. I'm standing here on the site where the potential lightning strike approximately occurred. As far as we could, we tracked down the area using the latest Google Earth image to the area where we could see the vegetation was brown, possibly indicating where the lightning strike occurred. And we're standing here, this is the approximate area within a probably about a 15-20 square meter radius of where that lightning strike would have happened. To think that I'm standing in the spot where such a devastating fire started, it's quite an eerie feeling to be at the beginning of everything. But every big fire has a beginning. Every fire starts from a point of origin and will spread in a certain direction. And although it's an important place, it's only a very small part of the picture. And the biggest part of the story is not actually where the fire started or how the fire started. It's more about where the fire spread to and what effect the fire had on the community.
The Elandskraal Fire that had erupted that morning and jumped the Barrington Road barreled across the landscape of rolling hills, thick with a mix of local fynbos, invasive alien pine and eucalyptus trees. All of these are highly flammable. The fire next jumped the Renendal Road just outside Knysna, and by 12:30 that afternoon was cresting the hills above the bridge that leads into Knysna from the west, known as the White Bridge. Driven by the gale-force northwesterly winds, the fire split at the White Bridge, first burning through and cutting off the villages of Belvedere and Brenton-on-Lake, with nothing to stop it reaching Brenton-on-Sea. Then, by late that afternoon, the fire had jumped the Knysna River and burned into the semi-rural suburbs of Knysna. First to be engulfed was the Eastwood area, followed by Paradise, Samola and Knysna Heights, forcing over 10,000 people to be evacuated and flee for their safety. By this point of the day, 5 people had lost their lives. On the eastern side of Knysna, the Kruisfontein Fire, which had been reported before the Elandskraal Fire, raged through the Kruisfontein plantation, impacting on Pazula Estate on the coastline. Burning embers rained ahead of the fire, increasing its rate of spread. One of these embers landed 3 kilometers away in the Harkerville forest. This was quickly fanned into flames and burned through the forest, reaching the Kronshoek View site by midday. It was during this time that 2 volunteer firefighters from the Plettenberg South Fire Management Unit were overrun by the fire in the Harkerville plantation. They had been trapped and caught while trying to turn their vehicle away from the path of the fire. Once the fire had jumped and burned around the deep cliffs in the Kronshoek area, it was clear nothing was going to stop it from reaching the town of Plettenberg Bay to the east of Knysna. B2 Fire Services, based in Plettenberg Bay, is a small town fire brigade, and were completely overwhelmed. All they could do was to try and hold the fire on roads where possible, or move ahead of the flaming front, evacuating people and protecting homes when they could. This was not always possible, and many homes were lost, either to direct flame contact, with homes being built in the middle of thick vegetation, or from ember showers, finding a way into a roof space or a small gap in a door, a wall, or a window. Once alight, a home will easily set another home close to it alight, due to the intensity of the radiant heat being given off. The fires burned for days, and by the 10th of June, 8 lives had been lost.